about skateboarding, but you're just not very good at jumping up and down on your favorite piece of wood. Crap skateboarding, crap skateboarding podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Crap Skateboarding podcast, a weekly dive into skateboarding for the average skater, hosted by me, James.
And me, Jack.
In this podcast, two distinctly average skaters will try to cover pretty much everything you might want to know about skating, from total beginners to midlife crisis resurgent shredders.
Each week we will be discussing a range of exciting topics regarding skateboarding in these uncertain times.
And this week, Jack, our topic is...
Drumroll, please.
Styles of
skateboarding!
skating! Jack is much better at doing his intros than I am.
Styles of skateboarding.
Styles of skateboarding.
I was trying to do that without waking up my my infant daughter too. I don't know if I'll find out if I've succeeded or not in a moment.
I was trying to do that without startling the cat, which is currently sat right next to me.
You're so punk rock. James!
I know, aren't we just...
Styles of skateboarding, man. What's that about?
Yeah, I mean, we've all seen skaters rolling around in the streets, and I imagine most people who don't skate, that's the first thing they think of when they think of a skateboarder, is somebody just kind of cruises around town on the skateboards, so people that get in the way, roll around, cause a bit of a nuisance, you know, like we do.
Yeah.
But there's a whole host of different styles of skateboarding, and they've all got their own sort of unique flavors, as it were. Their unique kind of skill sets that people might have, their unique sort of aesthetic, to a certain degree, unique equipment as well. Accessibility is one thing, some are more accessible than others, and how kind of your environment might gravitate you towards one type of skating or another.
Yeah, no, it's very true. Do you want to kick us off then, James? James!
Yeah.
What kind of skateboarding do you gravitate towards?
I tend to gravitate to... I mean, these days, I tend to gravitate towards park skateboarding, just because I like because as we've discussed on both previous issues, we are getting on a little bit. My knee is getting on a little bit. So yeah. I like to roll around the smooth concrete, have something set out for me that's nicely laid out, that I can just sort of jump from one obstacle to another and not get too frustrated if I'm trying the same obstacle over and over again and failing over and over again. I can just kind of move on to something else. So I like something where I can get kind of like a bit of everything all in the space of sort of a couple of hours and just generally kind of have a nice time. So I kind of gravitate towards I'd say sort of a jack of all skating trades and master of absolutely none.
Well, I'm actually a bit pissed off, man, because I was planning on, when it's my turn, I'm going to say that I'm a jack of all trades. Also, Jack being my name, you've just robbed me of a fucking awesome joke there, so thanks.
I'm sorry, no, I didn't mean to steal your fun there, mate.
But man, it's true though, isn't it? Because I don't know if it was a thing when we were younger. I know skate parks have been a thing since the inception of skateboarding, but whenever this may just be in my head, but I feel like whenever people used to talk about styles of skateboarding, they'd talk about, transition or street, and then they'd kind of lump their park skating in with that. You're either doing, if you were using obstacles, then it was streets, and obviously transition would be transition. And I feel like with the rise of concrete parks, this might be in my head, but I feel like park skating's become its own thing, really, almost entirely separate, that sort of melds both, especially when you get all these beautiful like street style parks with bold corners and things like that. I think they just blend an awful lot more now.
I think things like Street League and kind of really sort of cementing that, aren't they? And you can now definitely separate true street skateboarding from park skating. Parks, whereas they used to be kind of designed to emulate street obstacles, they used to be designed to emulate curbs, emulate handrails, emulate stairs, and all those things are still there. It's just that now they're designed to sort of flow much better. They're designed to flow, to allow for lines. They're kind of the way the steepness, the height, they're all sort of measured out to sort of optimize kind of the flow. And I think that's kind of something that you associate with park skating, is this flow of long lines, clean lines, from one obstacle to the next, With the street skateboarding, I think certainly it's more kind of either attacking the same obstacle over again in different manners, or just kind of finding a single line and trying variations on that single line.
Yeah, it's weird, really, isn't it? Because that's kind of taken its cues from the way transition's always been. I suppose this kind of focus on lines Not that I can do lines. I hope you understand. Not with any consistency. But you know what I mean, though. Like, you know, I guess transition skating's always been about that, putting a run together. And yeah, I guess street skateboarding has to a degree. But you're right. Unless you're blessed and live in somewhere like Barcelona that is rich with that kind of stuff, you're probably just attacking sketchy obstacles over and over again.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I really should be feeling more like you. I feel like this year we've done an awful lot of park skateboarding, and it's been really wonderful because you can go with your friends and you can all really want something slightly different and still be skateboarding in the same place and still be part of that community with the people you love around you. And that's a big win because it doesn't matter if somebody wants to really play on the mini or somebody wants to have a go in the bowl or somebody wants to be throwing themselves down some stairs. There's something there for everyone, and that's really cool. And I don't know if this is because we've been doing it a lot, or whether just because I'm awful and just indecisive but I feel like I'm falling out of love with concrete parks a little bit at the moment. I feel like when it's suggested, I feel really uninspired at the moment to do it. And I don't really know why that is, because they're great. I'm just in a bit of a funk, I think, with concrete parks.
Yeah, well, I completely see. And we're lucky. We live in the southwest, and you trip over concrete parks kind of walking from one place to another. There are so many astonishingly good quality concrete parks, and that is by no means a bad thing whatsoever. That is, it's brilliant that they're funding them and that they're being so well designed and popular everywhere. I mean, just between sort of my house and Jack's house is like one stretch of the ring road. There's 4 beautiful concrete parks, all within, you can go to one, then there's another one 5 minutes down the road, there's another one 5 minutes down the road, there's another one 5 minutes down the road from that. But I think what you're missing, and I certainly, because I know you're kind of like, you are very much the raw kind of heroin, death, shreddy, gravel in the knees, baggy trousers, proper 90s skater.
I'm a crap version of that.
And I think that rawness is lost in the park. So I think what we can do is we can kind of differentiate street skating, as it were, that kind of raw skating where you risk getting kicked out, you risk falling on a needle, you risk your board getting run over, you risk having something thrown at you by a passerby. That kind of raw street skating, that excitement that you get from finding a new spot and skating it until you either hurt yourself or you get kicked out or you break something.
And do you know what
you don't get with concrete parks?
Totally. And actually, do you know what? Concrete parks are amazing. So you're right. I would never say a bad word about them because we're so lucky to have them, and people would kill for them. Especially what we have. We are really lucky, and they are beautiful. But yeah, I always feel like, well, there's twofold to it. I always feel like with that kind of real street skateboarding, in a way, when you land something on something that isn't perfect, it feels so much better. It feels incredible. If you land on a sketchy landing, or if you land a trick on like paving slabs rather than concrete, it feels undeniably great because you really feel like you're riding a hog. It feels amazing. And
on the flip side of that, the punishments are even worse. Like the rewards are great, the punishments are even greater. Like if you frontside flip down a small stair set and then your wheel gets caught in a crack and you go flying, that is something you know when that happens. Like it's not as forgiving as concrete or metal or wood is.
And
really?
As horrible as concrete is, you'd rather slide across concrete than eat gravel, and I totally get that.
Absolutely.
But also we were talking about skateboarding as like a sport or skateboarding as art, and it's kind of that too. Like when you're playing music, say as a jump off in terms of art, you probably play music that you want to listen to. You wouldn't do it if it was something that you would never in a million years enjoy. That's probably a given. And I think it's similar. If we're thinking about skateboarding as an art, which it is in some circumstances and to some people, then I think when you're skating dodgy spots and you're being creative in that way, people are different. But for me, I feel like I'm making something that I would enjoy watching. If I'm filming something on a street spot like that, I feel like I'm making something as an art that I would like to watch. Which I don't necessarily get in a concrete park. I definitely feel like I'm playing, which is a great thing, but in a concrete park, I definitely feel like I'm playing in a way. When I'm skating street, I feel like I'm creating something, like I'm sort of I don't know.
I think you can kind of they are really distinctive, and they feel very different. And I, getting older now, feel slightly more anxious, it must be said, when I'm in a spot and I'm like to get kicked out of, and you get that sort of surge of excitement that you don't get at the skate park.
Like when I took you to Crack Bridge for our Halloween video.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I just need to.
We had to brush the glass out of the way. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I just sort of put this out. Jack took us to an underpass in Bristol, not the M32, which is a fairly gnarly park, but it's very cool and it's definitely ever skating. We went down to an underpass with a bank on it, quite a steep bank, and we got there. And I'm just going to list some things that we had to sort of push out of the way before we could skate the bank. We had to push grass out the way. We had to push glass out the way. We had to push gravel out the way. We had to push Haribos out the way before we could skate it. And I came back from that session with a snapped board and a massive blob of like Haribo and gum stuck to my wheel that I couldn't get off, and then I could not get off for the life of me. And then I ended up getting a new set of wheels because they just weren't rolling right because I couldn't get off. Like, it was properly gnarly.
I would argue that the footage we got at the Crack Bridge was the best footage we got for that video. It looked awesome. It looked so good,
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I'm not kind of saying that one's better than the other. I think the way I kind of see it is that a skate park environment is kind of like training. It's kind of like a training ground, It's kind of like, if you attribute it to any other sport, it's kind of like a football is. I don't know anything about football. I don't want to talk about football.
Why did you say that?
I don't know. Like the courts, the local tennis courts for a pro player versus, Wimbledon. I think like the skate park is your training ground where you can practice stuff. And yeah, you can and will get hurt there, but you can practice stuff in an environment that's kind of adapted to that. And then like the actual street skateboarding is the competition ground. Like you are up against everything when you're street skating, essentially. And that's what makes it brilliant.
Yeah. Do you know what's weird though? Because I love that stuff. Part of it's nostalgia too. Growing up in the depths of Cornwall, I think that my most beloved memories of skateboarding as a kid were making do and mending. It's finding something and thinking, how can we skate this?
Yeah.
And then finding something to do on it, finding a way and getting some footage and moving on. And so I think part of it's nostalgia, but I do surprise myself because I love skating transition too, and again, increasingly. And that's probably, in some ways, that's like the polar opposite. Because what I love about transition is that it's flowing and I don't really have to think about it. It's almost like yoga, not that I do yoga, but it's like, you just get into a trance and you can just go back and forth and you're just grinding and stalling. And I like that for the opposite reason, really.
Yeah, it's quite therapeutic mini ramp riding until you hang up and slam 6 feet backwards. It is quite therapeutic because and it is. You get into a flow, kind of like you get into a flow when you're playing an instrument, or when you get into a flow when you're playing a video game. You're really engaged. You get into this kind of like flow-like state, and you can just casually cruise and grind and carve and roll backwards and forwards, kind of like a wave. It's lovely. It's a really enjoyable way to skate. And street skating is very stop-start. You attack an obstacle, you stack it, you go again. You attack an obstacle, you stack it, you go again. You know, until you make it. Whereas with transition skating, you kind of you're in the zone. You can just grind the groove, as it were. I can't remember. There's a phrase for it. But yeah, you know what I mean. I'm going on now. I'm going to start talking bollocks.
No, but that's exactly it. And, of course you're going to try and challenge yourself. But, like, some days I don't. Some days I'll think, I really want to try something new on the Mini. Again, I'm really lucky. Not everyone is. But because we've got, like, the wooden Mini in the garden, when it's not raining like it is today, but on a better day, I can think, that's great. And there's days when I feel like, I really want to try something new. So I will make a real point of stretching myself. There's other days when I'm not. It's something you can, on the mini ramp, if you've got a few things under your belt, when you get to a certain point, you can just skate for the sake of skateboarding in a way. I just go out and I know I'm not going to stretch myself. I know I'm going to do 5.0s, 50/50s, wheelies, and just, things like that. but I'll just carve around on the ramp, and I don't need to try anything new.
Going around in the
I don't
garden
need
to do willies,
myself.
are you, Jack? Sorry.
Yeah, that's what's going on in my garden. Ah.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Sorry.
And
You
it's
had a
very
lovely little flow
therapeutic.
there.
Yeah, but I think
Got
I know
wood?
what I'm trying to say. You know, I do. I've got a nice hard dick.
You got a hole in your wood as well, haven't you? Last recall.
Yeah, a kid. Oh no, don't make me say that.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, so someone on a scooter. Basically, what it is I let the neighbours, kids. They're lovely kids, but I let them use the ramp because neighbours traditionally don't really like you having skateboard ramps in the garden, so I've been told. So I thought I'd get them on my side before I built it. I said, I'm going to build this ramp. The kids can play on it. So it's great. They do. And there's a guy, one of the neighbours, he's a teenage boy and on a scooter. And one day he'd been out there and went out to check on it. There's now a scooter wheel sized and shaped hole in the ramp. And he's not asked to go on it since.
Funny that.
So I mean, I'm not saying it was him, but
Yeah.
it could be. You know.
Anyway, sorry, I distracted you there from your lovely little flow about the therapeutic effects of mini ramp riding.
Do you know what it's like? Again, using the music metaphor. You know, I know you're a drummer, for example. There's probably some days you try and learn something new. You think, okay, I'm going to try and work on whatever it might be. You know, some fills, or I might try a blast beat or something a bit challenging.
Yeah.
And then there's times you'll probably just go out and just play a 4/4 standard rock rhythm, you know, because you're in the mood, you know you can do it and it'll make you feel good. And it's like that, you know. Some days you'll go out and think, oh, okay, I could try something new, but actually I could spend 10 minutes without stopping just grinding and hooking up and you know,
enjoying the mini ramp.
That's and I think that's you skate for different reasons on different days, I suppose. Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of the same with any hobby. And you can do the same for street skating to a degree. But if you're kind of like charging at a block and you're trying to, you know, let's say 5-0 it, nose grind it or something, you're always putting that kind of degree of effort in. Unless you're sort of resorting to your muscle memory tricks and just kind of popping the same tricks over and over again, you're always kind of putting in that kind of extra degree of effort. There's always a bit of a kind of sort of speed and an attack to it, whereas mini ramp riding, you don't really get that. On the flip side, Jack, have you ever tried dropping a vert?
Yeah, I think you know I have too.
I don't. I didn't know you dropped an vert. I didn't know that.
I think you were there.
Was I? Which vert are you talking about?
It was a wooden vert and it was at a park. It wasn't Mount. No, you weren't there. I'll tell you who
Was
I
it
was
Wooden
with.
Waves?
No, it wasn't. I'll tell you where it was. It was the park that used to be called Bay 66, and it was PlayStation skate park.
In London, the Xbox skate park, I think.
It was. Yeah, it was when I lived in London. It didn't go well, and I didn't try twice. I was there with a friend, right? And he was a cool guy. I met him in London, and he was a bit like you. He's like a terrible influence. And I was that little bit younger. So I was going through a resurgence of skating at the time. I was up in London training to be a teacher because I'm a nerd. And
nerd.
And you know, well, you got to pay the bills, James. You know, being shit at skateboarding doesn't pay the bills. So I was doing that, and I met this guy in a skate shop, and he was a really cool guy. Still is probably a really cool guy. I don't really see him now. And he just said, "Oh yeah, I'll show you some places to skate." So he became a really good friend. One is in London. He was my guy. We went skating together a lot, and we went to I think it was PlayStation skate park at the time, maybe. Yeah. I've lost track, but it wasn't huge. So it was a vert bowl rather than a vert like half pipe. So it was very much like a pool designed to be a pool, the big wooden pool that's in Basic 6 and or PlayStation, now Xbox apparently, as you've just told me. But
it might not be. I might be out of date.
I think do you know what? Because it was wooden, maybe, and because he was there, I felt like I'll give this a go. I was probably a little bit younger. Things are going quite well. I've been skating like bigger and bigger ramps just because when I was in London I didn't know many people, so I spent a lot of time skateboarding. You know, there's a solitary thing as well, which so I did get better quickly. I had no one to celebrate with, but I did get better quickly for a while. And yeah, no, it didn't go well at all. And what's bad about me that you are much better at, and people can heed my warning, is I'm terrible at falling. I never got good at it. Like, I know exactly what I should do, but in the moment, I just go down, and I go down hard, and I go down in like ridiculous positions, and it really sucked. And it was only wood. Like, this is the terrible thing. I remember it really hurting, but I'm glad it was only wood and it had that bounce to it. I've never tried since. I don't think I will try again. That may be like a really defeated thing to say, but I feel like at this point in my life, I kind of love skateboarding. I injure easily, and I love it too much to be out of action for a long time. I know that, like, actually, mini ramp riding, I can hurt myself, but within like limits, and I know my limits and whatnot. That's a cool thing to say, isn't it? I know my limits. You know, I think I've got no desire really to be out of action for a year or 6 months.
I think you're exceptionally brave, and I'm genuinely very impressed, because let's face it, vert riding is for masochists.
I've never done one like the one at Mount Hawk, man. I've never done one that size.
Vert riding is for masochists. So I've not dropped in the one at Mount Hawk. When I was 17, 18.
Did you drink a very good beer?
Nice. I should have done. I might have given me the balls to drop in the vert ramp if I drank a very good beer. What's the songs in my head now? Thank you. When I was 17 or 18, and I was kind of just before I went to uni, and I was kind of skating constantly, non-stop. Every sort of spare moment I was skating. I was kind of when I was at my best, I think. And I walked up the steps to the vert at Mount Hawk. Now, bear in mind, like, people like Sky Brown, who's 12 and is putting like 540s and twists on Tony Hawk's vert ramp whenever she feels like it. You got that kid who was like 14 when he did a 1080 on Bob Burnquist's mega ramp. You got these kids doing these insane things, and I walked up to the top and I stood there for about 15 minutes just looking over the edge of the coping. Now, I don't know if anyone who's listening has been to Mount Hawk. It's a big vert. But to be honest, it's probably just a normal sized vert, but it's the only sort of real vert that we had near us.
You do get significantly smaller than that still have the vert on. I think I don't know if it's like outrageously big, but I think it's definitely
it's big,
like industry competition big, I think.
Yeah, I went up to it and I just stared down at 15 minutes ago. I ended up sat down and just slid down on my ass. I chucked the board down and slid down on my ass and just went to the bottom of the flat and just started pumping and pumping. And I think I must have got maybe within like 4 inches of the coping, but just kind of went to the point where it was like just a point where my board was vertical, and that inertia that I was getting, inertia you get at the top of like the pump on a steep ramp. I just couldn't do it, man. It's like, if you are a vert skater, credit to you, like balls to the wall. It is scary. And it's incredible to watch. I think vert skating is one of the most impressive skateboarding there is, because it takes some serious guts, serious skill, and verts are so few and far between that
this is a huge thing, isn't it? That's a big part of it. Is that people just, it's almost like a privilege, really, to be able to get good at it. But for most of us, it's just a terrifying thing we look at. I remember what I did, actually, because what I did is I hung over the edge and I went to drop, and I did that classic thing people do when they drop in, like, for the first time often, where you start to drop and then you take your front foot off as you drop. And that's
guaranteed way to break an ankle.
Yeah, because your body just says, no, don't do that. So it's like as hard as much as you want to, something in your body, like, it's the body's will to survive, maybe just goes, don't, fucking maniac.
I mean, I've been eyeing up just even the bowl in Victoria Park and Bath. The deep end of the bowl is a little bit vert, and it's not as big as the one in Mount Hawk, but even that, I'll happily sort of carve around it and roll up to it. But for whatever reason, bear in mind, I've been skateboarding for 20 plus years, like, we've both been skating for like over 20 years now, and it still gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like,
but I think that if you're gonna do it, man, do it when you're obviously do it whenever you want, but I think if you do it when you're young,
Do it when you bounce.
we're still young, but we don't bounce anymore. You know, we're in our 30s now. We thud. And that's the thing, is like, I think when this resurgence of skateboarding happened, the 30-year-old Jack resurgence of skateboarding with this, I went in a little bit cocky almost, I think, and then I had a few real real ow moments.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. You've got to be okay with hurting yourself, but I think you do start to feel more mortal, and your body starts to like pick up on that, and it's a really hard mental battle to fight when you know that it's knowing that it's going to hurt, but it's knowing that it's going to hurt for weeks when it goes wrong. You know, that's what I struggle with now, I think.
Yeah. The thing is, you'll go through a period of time, and every skater experiences this. So go through a period of time where you skate loads, and you get pretty good, and you get confident. Your balance is just right. You can do stuff. You know, you've got loads of muscle memory tricks down. You can just kind of do stuff whenever you feel like it. And then you take a small period of time off, and then you take a few. You know, if it's due to life, whatever, you might take a few months off, you might take a few years off, or sort of intermittently back into it. But in your head, you still skate like you did a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So like I pick up my board after a few months off, being like, oh yeah, you know, I'll go and 5-0 that, and I'll, you know, do a disaster on that ramp, or 360 flip down that set, and then I'll get to the park and be like, and I forgot how to pop shove it. Like, and I'll try things and just stack it over and over again. And skateboarding does that. Skateboarding humbles you. Like, it humbles you. But something that it's really good at doing is giving you resilience. Skateboarders are incredibly resilient, incredibly patient, because you have to be. Skateboarding trains you that in order to succeed, you have to try and try and try and slam and slam and slam and experience failure. And while skateboarding is humbling, I think it develops very, very resilient individuals, which I think is one of the more overlooked aspects of it, because it makes you resilient in so many more aspects of life.
Mate, I think you're right. I can't remember who I saw it. Actually, I do know what this is from. I was watching. It's a really horrible documentary, so I'm not going to dwell on it. But it was a documentary about a skateboarder from the 80s called Mark Gator Rosowski, who turned out to be a murderer and sex offender and lots of other things we won't go into now. But anyway, he's a bad guy. Anyway, in this documentary, they were talking to Stacey Peralta, who started the Bones Brigade, a living legend. And he said really similar. I mean, I can't quote him exactly because I've not got it in front of me, but he said something about how you know, skateboarders, you know, we have the term skate rats, you know, to describe them. And in society, they were sort of looked down on by the more athletic types in schools and things like that. But actually, skateboarders have this exactly that resilience that you don't really see in many other sports. You know, if you look at, again, each to their own, but if you look at lots of other sports where they have problems with penalty killing and people, you know, taking dives to, you know, and whatever, and, you know, actually the whole nature of skateboarding is that you're gonna hurt yourself. And I don't think people from the outside realize how much skateboarding sucks, like how much it really hurts. You know? I think people think that I know I've had conversations with people where they see like a skateboarder bail on a video, and they definitely go, oh, you know, well, he's not very good at skateboarding because I've just watched him fall off badly, or you know, whatever it might be. And that seems to be something people see someone falling off, and I don't think they realize that like every skateboarder falls off all the time. Like what you see when they're succeeding is like the most thin percentage of that. But you're seeing the one time out of 30 that they did not fall off and hurt themselves.
Exactly.
You know? And
like
it goes wrong more than it goes right, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you watch, do you know what I love? And for this reason, I love the Thrasher My War videos. They are brilliant.
They are
because they
great.
just show you the whole process, like warts and all, like just stacking it. And like the thing is, you watch people like Niger, who, let's face it, is probably the most consistent skateboarder who's ever lived. And he's got these very tightly rehearsed lines. And he is incredibly good, and he's one of the very few skateboarders that can do things kind of within the first few attempts. But for the most part, when you watch a skate video, you are watching one clip from like 5 hours and maybe 3 trips to that spot. Like if you see somebody frontside flip El Toro, You know full well that they've been there 2 or 3 times, got kicked out once, they've snapped 2 boards, they've gone through half a skin on their back. And it doesn't matter how good you are, that always happens. Like, if I go down to the park now and try and 5-0 down the block, first time I'll probably hang up, second time the wheels will slide out and I'll miss the ledge and I'll slide backwards onto my ass. Like, it'll take a few times. And it's kind of like surfing, isn't it? Like, when you're surfing, you watch people shred, but actually 99% of the time they're sat there waiting for a wave and they're surfing it for like all of 10 seconds, if that. Skateboarding, you're stood at the lines, you're waiting your turn, you're attacking, and then when you get it, it makes it so sweet. Like the reward, that feeling of euphoria you get when you land a trick you've been trying over and over again, and that has literally claimed your blood, is sort of beyond anything in many other sports.
Do you know what? It's that, like, if you love it, bleed for it, you know? Like, if you love it, then you kind of have to show it you love it, because like, the skateboard doesn't want you on it, you know? No. In so many ways. It's gonna fly off in all directions, especially when, you know, it's a piece of wood with a full-grown adult jumping on it. Like, it's not really, I mean, it's a stupid thing to do, really, in so many ways, isn't it? Those My Wall videos, I mean, if anyone's not checked them out, they are incredible. That's what I love watching those. I absolutely love it. You know, no disrespect, because actually, like, Nigel Hudson deserves nothing but our respect. He's an incredible skater. You know, I could never do what he does. But by the same measure, like, and this is where people differ, but, you know, I don't get a kick out of watching him personally. People love it, and that's fine, because it's amazing. But I really don't. I'm going to go on record. I don't get any enjoyment out of that at all. Just because, you know, I know he can do it. Whereas with the My War videos, I feel like he can, you can see someone trying something for a long, long time, and you start to question, can they do it? It really, really, really pushes them to their limit, and the payoff is amazing. You're there with them, you know, you've been on that journey with them, and it really does, it really means a lot more, because people are pushing themselves to their absolute limits, doing stuff that probably shouldn't be done, and it's not easy. And it's like you said, it's warts and all, and you're watching that for sometimes like 20 minutes, just watching them do and they've been there, you know, sometimes days. There's that one of that guy trying to no slide, and then does he shove it out, I think?
No slide, shove it out near Vegas, I think it was. He drives
like a spiral stair set.
He got a bus from Vegas to LA like 18 times.
Yeah, that dude.
To land this trick. And like he tried it over and over again, and one of his mates said to him, why don't you just shave off the edge of your nose where it's catching on the wall when you try and shove it out? So he shaved off the end of his board, and after like 18 bus rides, hours of hurting himself, he shaved a bit of his board and then landed it like the second time after that. It was brilliant. Man. Brilliant.
But this is it, like, I loved watching that, because that's a journey you're on with them. You know, we were talking about the payoff of, like, being creative, and even like shaving your board, like, that is so creative, like finding that solution. When he landed that, I was, you know, that was better than any kind of compilation video part that I've ever seen. I would rather watch that than, you know, that made me want to skate, because that's why you do it. That's the love of the trick, you know, of like trying something, just giving your all into it, you know. And I feel like I don't get that from, I mean, I don't want to single out Niger, because basically it's a compliment, because I'm just saying he's too good for me to enjoy watching
what you're saying is that Niger is like War and Peace, objectively by all measure excellent, but not all that enjoyable to actually get involved with or read or watch.
Yeah, that's exactly it, isn't it? It's like, I can appreciate that because it's amazing, but yeah, it's not doing anything for me. Do you ever think as well, I might be right out of order saying this, do you think part of his consistency is that because he's such a kind of an industry in a way, you know, because he is very much like a figurehead for the sort of corporate side of skateboarding, which is absolutely fine.
Monster and
do you ever feel like part of his consistency is that they're very selective about the things that he skates too?
I don't know. I know that he and like him and like Letitia Buffoni and kind of that crew, they go to like Nike training camps and have like structured workout programs and things like that. Like proper. You can't see what I'm doing because it's a podcast. Indentations, proper athletes. Whereas you're kind of like, want to say like Chris Cole's. Although Chris Cole is kind of sort of he straddles both those worlds. I think Chris Cole's kind of like he's kind of like the bridging point between that super gnarly sort of like Steve Berra skating. Not Steve Berra, someone else. I can't remember what I'm talking about now. Anyway, that super gnarly skating and that pristine corpo skating.
I guess that I mean, that's his roots, isn't it? But he was one of the first to embrace street league, I think. Yeah.
Well, he's perfect, isn't he? Because he started off with zero, which is very much a brand that is huck yourself down the biggest thing you can as many times as you can until you either break something or you land it, and then moved towards the GoPro sponsorships and the Street League. So he's kind of bridged that gap. So I think so he's a really good example of somebody who represented both sides of skateboarding. And it's equally valid to be a fan of both. Like, you can appreciate it as the pristine multi-million pound sport, and also appreciate it as the dirt in your eyes, gravel in the knees.
But
skating.
I hope that anything I say never comes across like that, because actually, again, we got into skateboarding through the route of like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and yes, it had a gnarly punk soundtrack and everything, but at the end of the day, it was Activision doing their thing. It was an exercise in corporate. It was a corporate exercise. But actually, those Bones Brigades dudes, though, they're an example of that to a point, because the Bones Brigade. Yeah, they were like the first guys to make money off skateboarding, is what they say. They were the first ones to work out to get, and they make money. They did, and at the time, and you think of, well, a lot of those guys, like particularly Tony, Tony Hawk is so tied into that world in so many ways. But by the same measure, they weren't. Like, the Bones Brigade was so incredible at what they did, and they made a lot of money. But yeah, they really were like DIY, like, try watching Animal Chin and tell me it's professionally made. It's skating's incredible, but that is anything but a professional film, right? That's like that makes Sharknado look like fucking Citizen Kane. It's incredible.
Right, speaking of the Bones Brigade, and I think we won't sort of tie this up here because I think we're running out of time now. Speaking of Bones Brigade, I want to talk. We had a chance to do it in this episode. We've talked about mini ramp skating, street skating, park skating, that sort of clean skating, dirty skating, and kind of meandered through that kind of pathway. I want to dig into freestyle maybe next time or another episode. I want to dig a bit more into freestyle skating because we haven't had a chance to talk about that, and I want to talk some Rodney. I want to talk some Mullen. I want to educate these youths on the man, the myth, the legend that is Rodney Mullen, for those of you who just started out skating. And I want to go into some freestyle a bit more because that's kind of my jam. That's kind of how I started out, just with some concrete out the front and a board, and like, what can I do? So I want to go into that.
And you know what? Without freestyle, without Rodney, none of those styles of skateboarding would look the same.
No.
It all starts on the flat, I think. Everything that's been innovated started there, really. God, yeah, what a guy.
Just pathetic, man.
Yeah. Right. Shall we call that there? And we will speak next week.
Yeah, man, it's been great.
If you love skateboarding but you're just not very good at jumping up and down on your favorite piece of wood,